Partner of DSK Law, Mr. Dan Manzares.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and I have to do this so in case my mother's listening. Make sure we are DSK Law, right? That is our firm name that we like to go by, but the full name of the firm is DeBovian Simmons Knight Manzares and Neal. Emphasis on that Manzares. I'm very proud of that. So it's really a pleasure to be here, and I love to come as early as I can. I was a little late today, I apologize. But Dave's presentation was great, right? And he did a great job. Lots of good energy. From California and this one. But our governors don't like each other. I know what that's all about. But anyway, but he's great. And every time I hear folks come and speak and different people, they say things that remind me of little things, and just a little levity. He mentioned the fact that, when he was going through it and they were having his kid, his wife, and it was a labor of love, right? He found out when his baby was born, right? I bet when he said that, every woman in this room that had a child said, "You didn't do anything." That's what I thought. And then I thought when my son was born, my wife and I went to Lamar's class, and then we were sitting in a room, and I was sitting in the back, and the woman's going around asking all the men questions like, "So what do you think it's for your wife to be pregnant?" And then some guys are saying things like, comes to me and she said, "What do you think it's like for your wife to be pregnant?" It's like, "I don't know." She said, "Okay, come with me." He took me in the back room. He put a big suit on me with like 50 pounds of weight right here. And I had to wear it for 4 hours. Thank God there weren't cell phones there. They're called with cameras. It was really embarrassing. But anyway, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about our law firm, a little about who we are, a little about what we do, tell you a little bit about what we see in the industry, in the legal industry here in our country and in Canada and essentially in North America. And then tell you a little bit about what Legal Shield does and how they do it through our office and the other provider firms in the network. And then I'll finish it up with a little discussion, just giving you a couple little success stories and some statistics on our firm's work with our Legal Shield members. So, again, we are DSK Law, and I'm Dan Manzares, and I'm the co-managing partner of our firm's Legal Shield division. And I've been with the firm for 1988, so someone's doing that. Our firm was founded in 1976, and it's important for those of you who are out there in the market and thinking about this, being involved with Legal Shield, to understand the product. The product is obviously on paper, but the real power behind the product are the law firms behind it, the folks that provide the benefits, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our firm, but we're just one of literally 44, I think, excellent law firms in the provider network across the United States and Canada, right? And all the firms are very similar. We have great relationships with them. We are the North Florida provider firm, but we work very closely with a lot of the firms. I was mentioning today, we work very closely with the Parker Stanbury firm in California. Great firms, great stuff, and they're all at equal quality, right? They just really are. It is an incredible privilege to be part of this team that is the provider attorney network for Legal Shield. So our firm was founded, as I said, in 1976. In February 1996, we had the incredible opportunity to become a Legal Shield provider firm here in North Florida, North Central Florida, essentially. Back then, we had 5,600 members, right? 5,600 members. Today, we serve over 60,000. So you can see, the growth of Legal Shield over that time period has been tenfold, right? It's an incredible opportunity for us. We are AD rated by the Margell Hubble, which is the highest rating that a law firm can get. A rating, we're very pleased to have that. We have offices in Orlando, Tallahassee, Tampa, and Melbourne. And we're a general practice firm. Our firm was founded that way, right? We're the 9th largest law firm in Central Florida, and we have over 58 lawyers, probably up to about 61, 62 now, that have decades of legal experience. And it's important to remember why I point out that we're a general practice law firm and have all these decades of legal experience. Legal Shield is sold by people of all social economic levels, all levels, right? They know all different people from across all diverse backgrounds, everything. So you know what that means? Their legal issues are widespread. They cover everything, from really small matters to huge matters. So it's important that you know that your provider attorney firm can handle basically everything. That's what we were built on. That's how our firm is built, and that's what we do with our lawyers that we bring in. I'll tell you a little bit specifically about our legal shield division. We have 30 attorneys and another 35 staff folks that work for our 60,000 members. What's important to remember is that when you go out there and you look at people ask you what's going on with the lawyers, well, some of them are really good looking like me, and then we've been practicing a long time. Right? But for all of us have decades of experience. Our legal shield division attorneys average over 25 years experience practicing law. Right? So when you call our office, you're speaking to an attorney that's got decades of attorney. They're not right out of law school. They haven't just figured out what it means to open up a law book or do that kind of stuff. They know what a lawsuit is, that kind of stuff. So they're good, right? And most importantly, and respond to it, and I know it's tough for you folks in the back to see this, but to work in our legal shield division, they must never have had a formal disciplinary action related to the practice of law by the Florida bar. Right? That's the quality level.
That's impressive.
Well, what does that mean? I always tell people, the Florida bar, which is the regulatory agency for lawyers, requires you to go to law school, study for a test, take the test, pass a background check, get fingerprinted, do all that, and get admitted. Once you get admitted to that, it's like the golden club, you're in, right? It's hard to get in, but it's even harder to get kicked out, right? So what happens there is you have a lot of lawyers that have had disciplinary actions who still have their licenses. So they can work for any other client in the state of Florida, but they can't work for Legal Shield members.
Nice.
Because Legal Shield will not let that, right? That's a quality level piece that Legal Shield puts in there for its network. So those attorneys work in what we refer to as the traditional practice of law, right? And that's really everything other than what Legal Shield does. What I mean by the traditional practice of law, and most people are probably familiar with it before you even heard about Legal Shield, is you have a legal issue, and I'll date myself, you open up a book that we always call the yellow pages. You go to the A's, it says attorneys, you go there, right? Some people are shaking, I go, they know what it is. And some people in the back go, what? They used to have these things on the side of the road that were called phone booths. So you open up the yellow pages, you find a lawyer, and say, okay, that name looks pretty good, I'll call that lawyer. The lawyer says, yeah, I'll help you out. Come to my office, bring money, right? Because I will speak to you, but you have to bring money. And then when you come and you sit in their office, they say, okay, this is how much I'm going to charge you for this. That's your traditional practice law. They charge by the hour, right? They don't give you a guarantee of what it's going to cost to get it done. They don't really even say, okay, fine, you want to shop around, go shop around. Basically, that's how the traditional practice of law has worked literally for centuries, right? The problem with that is that when people most need legal services like that, they can least afford it, right? Think about it, right? Wealthy people who do really, really well, lawyers work for them all the time, right? They can still use a Legal Shield product, but it's easy for them to budget 10% of their $1 million income every year to pay for lawyers, right? That's easy for them to do, right? It doesn't work for 99.9% of the population, right? And I can tell you why, because if you look at the survey, in 2022, the Florida Board did a survey that said 85% of the lawyers in Florida charge more than $275 an hour. 85% charge more than $275 an hour, right? So that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. Even at the numbers that Dave was talking about and the income you can earn through Legal Shield, you would piss through a lot of those dollars pretty quickly, right? Right? And even at that, right, if you had to pay those rates, right? And then 54% charge more than $350 per hour, right? And if you look at that other thing, back in 2016, that number was 34%. So in 2016, 8 years ago, only 34% of the lawyers in Florida charged more than $350 an hour. Now over half of them charge more than $350 per hour. You can see what's going on here, right? A couple other statistics we go to a 2017 survey. 1973 survey showed that over 54% of the law firm's revenue came from individuals, right? The traditional practice of law, like I told you about, individuals who need legal services are calling lawyers, and law firms are working with them. They're generating income from them, they're doing well, everybody's doing great. 2017, that number drops from over 54% to 25, so a little over 25%. So what does that tell you, right? Individuals can't afford lawyers, right? Not only that, the other side of that, law firms are looking at it going, I'm not going to work for an individual, right? Because individuals can't pay. I'm going to work for these big businesses, right? So what's happening here? The individuals are getting squeezed out of the legal market, right? They have nowhere to turn. That's how the traditional law has basically declined over the decades it's been around, right? Individuals not receiving legal services now is because lawyers are focused on clients paying high hourly rates. It shocks me to death. I told you some numbers, but you can pick up a paper, right? You can read about, sometimes you'll read these stories about a government that hired some big law firm out of New York, and they'll publish how much they pay, and they're paying like $1,000, $2,000 an hour for lawyers, right? And God bless those lawyers who get that. But you think about it, a lawyer that thinks they can go out and collect $1,000 an hour, right? Or they're not gonna work for an individual, not even for $350 an hour. They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. So what that means is that this is all a failure of traditional practice of law and how it's failing individuals and families and small businesses in our country and Canada. It's not cost effective for the majority of potential clients. It's frankly simply too expensive. Traditional practice law lacks customer service. There's no service standards. I just mentioned one earlier. The Florida Bar Regulatory, no service standards. Any lawyer can still keep their license even if they've been disciplined for the Florida Bar, right? It's intimidating or difficult to use. Some of those lawyers, they're pretty difficult to deal with, right? Lawyers are egomaniacs. They think way too highly of themselves, right? I'll be the first to admit it. And there's a reason why there's a lot of lawyer jokes, right? Because they deserve it, right? I tell people all the time, there's all kinds of nice people, there's great people, there's clergy people, there's all these people, there's politicians whose heart's in the right place and doing the right thing. Then there's used car salesmen, then there's lawyers. Right? We are really below used car salesmen as an industry, as a profession, right? And that's because of how we treat and how we feel it, and how we treat people and what we're doing, right? And then there's limited access to lawyers, right? That idea of finding a lawyer, picking up the phone, trying to reach them is so antiquated that it really has pushed these individuals out, squeezed them out of the legal market. So we can talk a little about another poll. This is all that leads up to the perception, right? So, and based on this survey back in 2018, 82% of the folks surveyed wish there was something else other than the traditional practice of law. 82%, right? Pretty high. And you look at this. You would think that folks that are at lower income levels, that that would be a no-brainer for them. Yes, I would want something different than the traditional practice of law because I'm at a lower income level. And that level is at 87%. But then you look at folks making over $100,000 a year that took this survey, right? 79% of those people who make over $100,000 a year said even though they have a decent income, they still want something different than the traditional practice of law, right? That shows you the problem with the traditional practice of law out there. So, and I put this out there because this is my pet peeve to change before I retire from the practice of law, if that ever happens. This is from the World Justice Project, which is an entity out there that basically surveys countries around the world to decide how they are with regard to the rule of law. In other words, they do it in two levels. They do it on the criminal side and the civil side. We'll put aside the criminal side because in the United States, the government does a really good job with public defender's office and all that and getting people that are needed. On the civil side, right, when they looked at how well does the rule of law protect civil rights for individuals in a particular country, the United States ranked 115 out of 140 countries surveyed. In other words, we were way down to the bottom, and the 140 countries surveyed were the ones that were most economically advantaged in the country. So you can see how poorly our civil justice system is as it compares globally, right? And among the 43 wealthiest countries in the United States, we ranked dead last when it came to accessibility and affordability for civil legal systems. Wow. Right? So Dave talked to you earlier about the whole program, about being involved in Legal Shield and individual and what it can do for you, and it's great. You can make your little individual world great. You, for your families and your kids, and maybe help you with some generational wealth. But what I hope you walk away, I'm going to say this now and I'll say it later again. Hope you walk away from hearing me today is, I'm here to tell you that it can help you literally change the world. You can be part of changing the world by bringing this out. And you can be part of changing those numbers for us as a country, which really is what my prior goal is to be involved with, right? Not only help your individual world, but you can really change the whole world and other people. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we're doing, what I'm talking about there in a little bit. So the delivery of legal systems services in our country is now changing. Customers, thankfully, are demanding better than the traditional practice of law, and they deserve to have better, right? out the window, right? It does not work anymore. Individual law firms are now starting to recognize it. In fact, in 2012, the Georgia Board on the State of the Legal Market said the market for law firm services is being transformed by clients, law firms that get it, and by alternative service providers. And that pace of change is transformative processes accelerating. Alternative service providers. That's the change agent that's moving away from the traditional practice of law. The ability to get something else other than that model of paying hourly rates for legal services from a lawyer that you don't feel comfortable with and you have no really understanding of how well they can do a good job of it. That's the change agent that's out, these alternative service providers. And I'm here to tell you, after being doing this since 1996, I know what the change agent is. It's Legal Shield. And why? Because Legal Shield has put these innovations in place. They've created this seamless network of lawyers around North America to be able to provide services. Their legal services their product, their plans are second to none. They provide access for any legal matter, right? And what I always like to remind people is the beauty of the plan, it doesn't matter how big or small the matter is. You get the same service at the same price, whether it's a huge matter or whether it's a really, really small matter, right? That's incredible, right? We have unique customer service training. This is something that when lawyers join my firm, I tell them, I'm going to put you through some customer service training. And some of them will look at me and go, I went to law school. I don't need to know customer service. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And Legal Shield has been basically, they've revolutionized the idea of customer service for lawyers in our country and in Canada. It's just incredible what they've done. They've also implemented technology that we have a state-of-the-art software system that tracks every member's interaction with our firm, what happened, who they spoke to, how long they spoke to them, what we did for them, how we helped them out, right? There's a Legal Shield app, you all should know about it, right? The app is great, it's really just an incredible ability to do that. And now we've started using some text messages to basically reach out to folks, because our biggest issue is sometimes we can't reach people. So we need to set it up. And we've learned, and Legal Shield learned that we can be great lawyers, but if we can't reach our people, we can't do our job. And so that's really important. Legal Shield's put a lot of dollars into being and helping us with that. So our primary goal has always been the same: provide the highest quality legal services while concentrating on customer service to individuals, families, and small businesses. What I like to say is that the highest quality legal services, period. Not the highest quality legal services for $25 or $28 a month. The highest quality legal services, period. And that's what I hope you learned from learning about my law firm and our lawyers that work for us that have the experience that they have. So in 2023, we provided legal access to our Florida members, and I want to talk a little bit about access because this is what I was mentioning earlier. So we handled 75,000 requests for service. That means 75,000 times in 2023, a Legal Shield member contacted our office for legal services and spoke with one of our attorneys about that legal issue. That's 75,000 separate legal matters, right? Just think about that. We wrote 18,000 letters, right? We handled over 4,120 traffic matters. I always throw my disclaimer out: do not use your Legal Shield member as a shield to speed. Okay? That's my free advice for you today. Please don't do that. And tell your kids that they shouldn't do that.
It was an accident.
I was not speeding any of the tickets.
It was an accident.
They all say that, right?
We were talking.
And so, and last year, and some of us, like Zoom government around here, we do this presentation for a long time. This is our number from last year.
Every year.
But you probably don't remember the last time we did it. This is the highest number we ever had. Last year, we saved or collected over $2.1 million. This is only simple play. So for our 60,000 members, when they contacted, we collected over $2.1 million.
Yes, sir. Crazy.
That's the largest number we've ever had since we've been keeping track of them. So we did over 2,000 wills for individuals, and it's just a great product. So I want to finish up by talking to you about what is. Those numbers I just talked to you and showed you about how we are all together working to get individuals access to justice, right? That's what it shows, right? It's such a vitally important part of our community the growth of our community, the sustainability of our community, the economic wealth of our community, all the things you can think of, family life, small business life, entrepreneurs, everything you could possibly think of, right? That it's having access to civil justice is such an important part, right? That's why those numbers that I showed you about how the United States compares globally, I think are so important, right? And I'll tell you that this has been an issue for 100 years, right? So back in 1919, this gentleman, Reginald Smith, who's a Harvard Law grad, he's a guy that is basically credited with developing pro bono legal aid services around the country. He's made this statement, and I'll read it because the people in the back might go. With universal access to justice, class hostilities would diminish, the turbulent marketplace would return to stability, and people's disposition towards righteous conflict would be diverted. Society would be cleansed of its anarchistic elements, and the confidence of people in lawyers and the legal system would be reestablished. Right? He said that back in 1990. Right? You don't have to look very far all you gotta do is watch TV or follow something on the internet to talk about right now we have too many people who are wrapped up in righteous conflict. Right?
Yes.
Too many of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I really believe that part of that is because of the impact of the lack of civil justice for them. They feel like they can never get justice, that the world is always against them, because they can't get their little problems handled. Right? They can't get it. And I think that's part of what it is. And I think that's what Mr. Smith was talking about. I know that's what Mr. Smith was talking about. And that's what we're all part of. Right? That's really what we're all doing. So, I want to tell you a little bit more about, put some facts associated, and I'll run through some quick success stories before Daniel throws something out and tells me to get out the story. But I got the microphone in the front. I said this because this story I'd like to tell because this isn't a quote from me, right? And what this quote says is, I received this security deposit. I just wanted you to know how much I've appreciated your guidance and support with my tenant issues, right? I truly believe if I had not contacted you, I would have been responsible for every one of those unnecessary charges. So what happened to this gentleman, I'm going to tell you, happened to me and my family, right? He had a lease, and those of you who have apartments, if you have an apartment in a big complex, I guarantee you buried in your apartment is a lease term that says your lease will be for a year. But if you don't tell me that you're moving out after your lease is up, and you have to give this, sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's 60 days. If you don't give me 60 days notice, me and the apartment complex, even though the lease is up, and you have no right to stay there in the day after the lease is up, you lose your security deposit. If you don't give me 60 days notice saying, I'm moving out, right? It's crazy, right? Well, my wife and I renovated our house. We moved into an apartment for a year. I signed a year lease because we were gonna have to live in it while we renovated it. She wanted to stay in the house. I said, no way. But that clause was in there. And so when I was getting to move out, the lease was up, I'm like, I'm a lawyer, I'm just moving out, right? I'll clean up everything and I'll give them my deposit back, right? They sent me, no, you were supposed to give us 60 days notice. I looked back up, like, that's crazy. I never really looked at it. So, I'm a lawyer. So what do? I research everything, I find all the cases, I look at it all, I put it all in, I say, give me your lawyer's name. They give me the lawyer's name, I send them all the thing, I get a nice little note back when Mr. Manzares, don't worry about it, have a good day.
Wow.
That's what I got. Right? Yeah, my situation, right? This gentleman had the same exact thing happen to him. But what didn't he have? He wasn't a lawyer. Right? And he wasn't married to a lawyer. Right? So for us it was an easy resolution for the front end. Right? And I'm not, because we knew the law, we knew what was going on. But for him it was a big problem. Right? And because he had a legal shield, he was able to get access to that lawyer.
Nice.
And help him do that.
Yep.
Right? And we did. And he said he thought he would have been responsible for every one of those unnecessary charges. This is a gentleman that was finishing up his apartment complex and moving out of state. Right? He took another job, he was moving out of state. It means the world to me to have the least amount of issues while relocating to another state and starting a new position. Little issue, right issue for the member, didn't take a lot of time for the attorney, but we helped create an incredible amount of peace of mind for that individual member that he wouldn't have had otherwise as he moved on. Incredible.
Nice.
Incredible exception. I agree with you for this one, because I'm going to tell you my favorite story of all time in World War. right? But this member cried because when we told her that she didn't have to do it, she donated the car to an auction, right? She gave the car to an auction. I don't remember where she had the car from, but she donated to the auction. Some gentleman bought it at the auction. They gave him the keys. He drove off in the car, right? Gets in a car accident that night, hurts somebody. She gets sued. Why? Because the car's in her name, right? She'd given the car to this charity. She thought she was doing the right thing. Right? She gets sued, calls our office. She has her a trial defense benefits on her, has her legal shield number. And we look at it again, and it was pretty simple for us to do it. It required filing a couple of affidavits, filing something in the pleading, and the case was dismissed against her. My lawyer called her and said, case is dismissed, don't worry about it. She literally cried on the phone. Cried, right? Because we were able to get her out of that case, and it didn't cost her anything. So I go to this building on a pretty regular basis related to work, and I go visit clients there. I go about once a week, sometimes twice a week, and all that. So I go to the building, and it's like any other building, a nice big building. They have a registration desk where you have to sign in when you're doing it, right? There's a gentleman that's a very nice gentleman. He goes there, and the first time I was there, he kind of said, "What kind of name is that? What is he?" He asked me what the background of my name was. It's Greek. And so how do you pronounce it? I tell him. A couple of weeks later, I'm there, and he's talking to a nice guy, and he goes, "Are you the Manzares with DSK Law?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm your client. I just got a legal shield membership." I'm like, "Great." I said, "This is great." I'm like, great, I hope it works out. It's great, And I say, like I tell everybody else, and you should tell your people when you sign them up, please don't keep your membership on the shelf. Use it. And I told them that. So I go back there, and every now and then see me, waves at me. And a couple weeks later, I'm back in there, maybe about a month later, and some of the plans have what's called an uncontested name change on them. You know about that, right? And when they put that membership benefit up, that's a nice benefit. I don't know how many people really need to use that. Well, I see him about a month or so after that, 2 months after that, and he says, "Hey, I'm talking to this lawyer." He mentions the lawyer in my name. "I need to do a name change." I'm like, "Great. Do you have the benefit?" He goes, "Yeah, I got the benefit. He's going to handle it." So great. And then he says to me, "There was a problem with my birth certificate. I'm one of three, two sisters. Our names are all different because they messed up my birth certificate." I said, "Okay, that's a good reason for a name change, right?" So, and this guy's, he's probably in his late 50s. So everything's going well. I see him about 2 months after that, actually this past January, and I walk in the building in the morning, and he comes up to me, and I register, and he goes, "Hey, good to see you." He goes, "I got my hearing today on my name change." And he's all excited. I'm great. I hope it all works out. Right? It's early in the morning. For whatever reason, I had to stay in that building the whole day. So I'm leaving at about 4:15, and as I'm walking out the door, he's coming back in the building. And he's crying. He's looking at me, he's crying, like, something happened, right? He's got his son with him, and he comes running up to me, gives me this big, huge hug. And he goes, "You wouldn't believe it, it went great. I'm so happy. Your attorney did such a great job. I love legal school. This is unbelievable." And then he looks at me and he goes, I'm going to show you his quote. The only thing I've ever been ashamed of was my middle name. And now, after 50 years, it is you that is personally responsible for unsettling me with this burden. I want you to know that I could never thank you enough with my words. I will always be indebted to you. Thank you so much for your time and dedication to making my life better. I will never forget this moment. I haven't seen that. And he sent this to the lawyer that handled it in our office. But then when I was walking out, he stopped me and said, I didn't mean to tell you the truth. And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, it really wasn't my name." He goes, "When I was 3, my father killed my mother. And my grandparents raised me and my 2 older sisters, and they did a great job for us." He said, "But I was always ashamed because my father's name was my middle name. And I never could get it off my record, and I always was ashamed of that." And I thought to myself, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Right? It's an easy thing that these people can carry these burdens for years. But because of our Legal Shield Act, the access to our firm, Legal Shield, the ability to get these services, we lift this burden up for people. Right? And I appreciate these comments very much. And what I appreciate more than anything, frankly, is the fact that every one of these stories, every one of those 75,000 people that